Welcome to Empowered Kids TV and welcome to Village Talk. I am so excited to have you here. You're here because you know that every family has the potential to be great and you're willing to push the boundaries of your mindset so that you can create the family of your dreams. Today, we welcome back one of our amazing coaches, Sue DeCaro. Sue is a heart-centered coach that helps parents create more harmony and connectedness through boundaries, discipline, and confidence. A mom of two, she has helped families take advantage of their strengths to reshape family interactions in a positive way. Sue's training as a parent coach, combined with her own family's experiences, enables her to approach every client with empathy and to craft tailored solutions to achieve their goals. Sue's mission is to help bring more laughter, love, and enjoyment to our families. You can find out more about Sue's amazing work at decaroparentcoaching.com. Sue, welcome back to the village.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
All right. Today's question, Sue, comes from Claire. And because I like to give you all the tough ones, it's another tough question. So Claire writes, how do you talk to your kids about sexual abuse so that they know how to protect themselves? I need help to understand at what age I should have this talk and what to say. I'm freaking out because I don't want to scare my kids or steal their innocence, but I want them to learn how to be safe. I'm really confused. Can you help?
Claire, this could be said by many parents because many parents worry today about how to have this conversation. And, you know, one of the things that I always bring up as a coach is it's very important that we step into our own fears and move through them first before we ever try to tackle these conversations with our children, because our children are these brilliant creatures that pick up on everything that we put out. So, you know, if you're afraid, reach out to one of us, first of all, to move through some of your fears carefully and constructively so that you can come to a neutral conversation. Because I think talking about sexuality is a very important topic, and talking about it with neutrality and understanding is also important. And our kids need information. They need accurate, age-appropriate information that helps them to understand more about their bodies, more about accepting their bodies, who they are, and what's okay and what's not. I don't put age, discussions on these kinds of things because I think a child steps into their sexuality upon birth. Not that we have conversations with them from birth, but they're looking at the world around them. They're looking at us as models. And you might be saying, well, we're not really modeling anything about sexuality at young ages. Well, we might be. We might be. So kids take in a lot. So when you look at yourself, look at what you're modeling about accepting healthy boundaries. Now, one of the things that I think is important about healthy boundaries is when your child is 2 or 3 or 4, do you tell your child to go hug Auntie, Mame or, Uncle Jim or Daddy when Daddy comes home, or their brother, their sister, anybody, insisting that they hug this person? Because that's not a healthy boundary, right? We want our children to be empowered to choose what feels right for them and when. So this is where it begins at, very young ages of insisting, say I love you, kiss, so-and-so. And our children really need to decide if that's a boundary for them. And they need to know that the word no is respected even at 2, 3, 4 years old. So they can have limits and boundaries at those ages, and they deserve to. They're human beings. So this is how respect is built in understanding their needs and their boundaries at young ages, and to almost praising them, so to speak, for having boundaries that they follow through on. I think it's wonderful that you kiss Uncle Jim when you feel it and you want to, or you go hug so-and-so when you feel like it's right for you. So the next step is sharing how beautiful our bodies are and how our bodies are our own. And that it's not okay for anyone to touch us in a way that makes us feel uncomfortable. And again, this is young children, because a young child, 4, 5, 6, needs to learn this in a neutral way. And when they're that young, you can have this conversation in a neutral way. It also can move into explaining, parts of our bodies are private and we need to accept them as private. So, depending on what your values are, at a certain age, you might not want your child to run around the house naked, right? Some families feel that can go on for years and years and others don't feel. But that's, really according to you and your values. But this is how you educate children about their bodies, their boundaries, what's theirs. You talk about the conversations that they might have with the doctor or nurse practitioner and how that person checks the body for various reasons. And I would go as far as to share those reasons. I took my 4-year-old granddaughter to the doctors for physical a couple weeks ago, where she brought a Hershey Kiss for the doctor, not knowing she was getting shots. So I thought, well, that's going to go over well at the end. You guys can share a Hershey Kiss after she's just given you 2 shots. But we talked about, I did step in with my daughter's permission to talk about how her body was hers and that, her private parts, which we've, talked about or mom has talked about, are also her part of her body, and privacy, she understands what that means. And the reason that the doctor will check her body is to make sure she's growing well and everything is, is in the right place, so to speak. And that, there's no rashes or anything that might need attention. So again, at a 4-year-old level, that they're growing and changing just as they should. Now, it's not just their private areas, it's your ears and your nose and your mouth. So you make it a conversation that's about all parts of their body. But their ears, their nose, and their mouth are visible mostly at all times, except when they're wearing a hat, whereas private parts are not. And so, again, sexual discussions begin at an early age. And I think also how you allow a child or how you help a child to clean and care for their own bodies and discuss their curiosity, their exploration, like everything else. So I'm on a few moms groups, quite a few moms groups where I see a lot of mothers, talking about boys and boys touching themselves. Oh, he touches himself all day long. They're curious, they're curious. And sure, we don't want our child walking around in public touching themselves all day long. But I think if we understand that this is part of an exploration and not a negative, taboo. Yes. We don't want children to think that this is taboo. And so, having the intention to help your child understand the health and the beauty of their own bodies, because we're all beautiful human beings, and how we create those boundaries around our beauty that's our own. I think that's hugely important. You can read books together.
That is. There's one thing you touched on, Sue, that I wanted to pick up on, because I think
sure.
This is a really beautiful conversation. And to talk about sexuality in isolation is one thing, but to recognize that it's part of development is another. And when you talk about recognizing that forcing a child to hug or to kiss someone is actually showing them that they don't have to have respect for their own boundaries, that their boundaries don't matter, that opens up a beautiful conversation that I like. And what I did with my kids, I've got 2 boys, and what I did with them was to try to teach them what feels right inside. So, and we play it as a game sometimes. Sometimes we're just walking, we'll be taking a walk in nature, and they get to be the leaders. And we have no direction of where we're going to go. But I say, what feels right inside? So that they practice listening within for what feels right. Because in times where it's not safe, like in this conversation we're having, they should be able to rely on what feels right and what doesn't, based on themselves as opposed to what someone else is saying. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And you can take it a step further with food, listening to our body, feeding our body when our body feels hungry, saying no when our body feels, like it doesn't want to eat or doesn't want to partake in something that, perhaps is against our boundaries. Absolutely. I love that story. We really need to empower our children to have choices, to listen within, because the noises outside of us are incredible. And really, it's our inner wisdom as children, as adults, that we really want to tap into. We want to teach our children, as you said so beautifully, to tap into their inner wisdom.
And I think that's difficult for most parents because
Mm-hmm.
if we're being really honest, it's easier if you don't listen to what you want inside of you and you listen to me, right?
Right.
Mommy said,
That's how we're trained. We're
that's
trained
how
that way.
yes. And it takes courage as a parent to say, I will create space here to allow you to listen to your voice as opposed to my voice. It takes a lot of courage. And it's not easy. But when you recognize the impact of doing that on bigger conversations, like on sexuality, you realize that from, as you said, from birth, it's about really guiding our kids to understand their own sense of self-worth, their respect for themselves, honoring themselves and their boundaries, and really honoring what feels right for them. So I think it's, while it takes some courage and some patience, it's a journey worth making because it makes all the rest of it easier.
Yeah. And it's truly connecting to relate to your children in this way. It's connecting to give your children space to share their wisdom, to share what speaks right to them from the inside out. And as you know, we've talked about on this show, as you've talked about, Nicole, how important it is to walk this journey alongside of our children, learning every day from them as they learn from us. And so when you give them the space to teach you by allowing them to tap into what feels right, where they want to take you in the woods, wow, imagine what you might learn from them. You know, they might pick up a whole bunch of pine cones, take them back, and make this beautiful, you know, creation. So I think it's hugely connecting to listen to our children in this way, to let them tap into their inner voice, as opposed to the ways many of us were raised, which was, you know, very conditioned, perhaps limiting beliefs. I'm talking about my own journey here probably, but you may relate. So, you know, really allowing them to tap into what feels right inside and tuning out the, you know, the added noise outside of what everybody's telling us that we should do or be.
And I think that in my own journey has really allowed my kids to feel comfortable to tell me things that they think I may not want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Or they think it's scary or I'll get into trouble. Yeah. And I think, so for me, like I say to my kids, we have a rule. If you think I'm going to get annoyed, you just come and say, you are not allowed to get annoyed. I
I
have
love it.
something to tell you, because I would rather that than my kids hide or they lie and they leave themselves without guidance. I
Yeah.
would rather take a deep breath and hold what I need to process in until I'm finished having the conversation so that I can give them the space to come to me. Because when you talk about topics like this, you have to know that your kids feel comfortable to come to you no matter what.
Yes, and being someone with a 25 and 21-year-old, I can tell you that is paid off, and they tell me things that are way beyond things I want to know. And not to scare any of you, but you know, when you have this open conversation, you hear, you know, in this open dialogue and connectivity, you hear a lot of things that you have to be like, did I just hear that? Am I going to just let that go in one ear and out the other? Thanks so much for sharing, child of mine. But that's connection. That's true connection. And you can't take, you know, just what you want to hear and kind of say, oh, don't tell me those things. You get it all. And it's quite the journey. And it's always enlightening, to say the least.
I'm going to wrap up for Claire. We started off by saying really process your fears first. Take the time to go within and recognize how you feel about this topic and do the work to process those emotions, whether it means reaching out to get support, to work through those emotions so that when you go to your kids to have this conversation, it's a neutral conversation. Create healthy boundaries from an early age. Allow kids to explore what boundaries they would like to create and help them honor those boundaries for themselves. Show how beautiful their bodies are. I love this one. Talk about how beautiful their bodies are and what they feel comfortable doing. Talk about how they take care of their bodies, their hygiene and health, and the different people that they can expect to be able to support them through taking care of their bodies. And also, we talked about allowing them to explore their own bodies in a way that doesn't feel judgmental or wrong, but just feels natural and beautiful so they can work out what feels right for them. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Sue?
And enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride.
It's a tough topic. So, you really have to just enjoy it and be okay with it yourself. You have to be okay with it yourself because this is not taboo. Don't make it taboo. Make it something you embrace with love and compassion.
I love it. Sue, thank you so much for joining us on Village Talk today.
My pleasure.
As always, amazing. I just want to remind everyone, please dive into Sue's work. Her work is amazing and can really help transform your family challenges. You can find out more about Sue's amazing work at DeCaroParentCoaching.com. With love and gratitude and powers, until next time. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Village Talk. Now remember, it still takes a village. So if you found value in this episode, be sure to like it and share it with your family and friends. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe and hit that bell icon so that we can notify you of our upcoming episodes. Remember, as we always say in this village, you're just one connection away. Until next time, empowerers, with love and gratitude from all of us at Empowered Kids TV.